Over half the world's population lives in urban centers, and in Canada, over 80% of us live in our cities. So for 30 million of us, Canada's urban response to the COVID-19 crisis is very much a question of our community, our physical and mental health, our safety, social equity, and ultimately, our resilience. What we want to explore in this series is the urban response to COVID. What happened and what worked. How our urban planners and you and I, as an urban community, have responded to the COVID-19 crisis on our streets and on our sidewalks.
Not only were we trying to help people have that ability to get that physical distance, but a lot of people were just kind of walking on the street anyway because they were worried about getting too close to other people. Beach Avenue is one of the most visible of those. We opened the eastbound lanes of Beach Avenue to walking and cycling. Really, more than anything, to create more space on the seawall for people to walk and physically distance. We pretty quickly saw that become the busiest bike route in the city, which was really impressive to see how many people were out there riding it every day. Our busiest count was almost 13,000 people in a day, which is
In one day.
In one day, which is phenomenal. So in addition to that, we had the Slow Streets program where we've rolled out over 40 kilometers of what we're calling slow streets. And those are really streets where we're trying to discourage people from driving as much as possible to create more space for people to walk and bike. We were seeing a real lack of opportunities to get out and recreationally walk and bike around the city. Everyone was kind of showing up at the seawall every day, and that was causing some real crowding problems.
It's awesome. We're really loving it, and I can tell you I'm looking forward to riding up and down here multiple times a day instead of over there. I think half the downtown kids learned to bike during the first part of the pandemic because they weren't at school and you had to do something with your kids outdoors, and that's one of the most joyful things about being up and down here all day.
We see the impact of the shutdown on the response to COVID-19 on the street level, the sidewalks, in our parks, at social service agencies, at the downtown east side in Vancouver, at bus stops, and our favorite restaurants and storefronts. How have we pivoted under the disruption COVID has had on our communities and businesses? And of these responses, what's worked, who's benefiting, who is not benefiting, what have we learned, and what do we carry forward?
We put in a lot of effort on liquor licensing and siting and serving across the sidewalk and all that sort of stuff to get somewhere between a half dozen and a dozen curbside patios out before the pandemic. And then all of a sudden, the liquor licensing framework changes almost overnight. The interest from businesses in repurposing the parking space changes very, very quickly. And I don't think I certainly didn't expect to be reviewing hundreds of patio applications and gladly approving the vast majority.
I've had 2 operators tell me that it's a key to their survival. So it's, again, as a rapid response, it's really impressive what the city's put together and how people have rolled these out. In just the last few months, Paris's mayor has come out with a battle cry for the concept of the 15-minute city. Essentially, everything you need in life within a 15-minute walk, bike, or transit ride. In the spring, cities like Milan, Los Angeles, Portland, all activated programs dedicating streets to people. Toronto converted 60 kilometers of their streets to quiet streets, and in Oakland, California, they dedicated 120 kilometers of their roads to a slow streets program. In our region of Metro Vancouver, the City of Vancouver has taken the lead with its Making Streets for People program. This rolled out very quickly last spring and has encompassed 6 main actions. These included temporary patios for street-level businesses, pop-up plazas around the city, slow streets, which is a new traffic calming effort on over 40 kilometers of Vancouver's roads, expanded bus loading and exiting plazas at key locations throughout the city, expanded room for walking and waiting along specific busy streets, and repurposing some street spaces to encourage walking, rolling, and biking. The major example of this being Beach Avenue, and up until September, the repurposing of the roadway through Stanley Park to primarily bike use. So in Vancouver, what have we learned? What's worked? What hasn't? And what do we carry forward?
We still have a lot of work to do on equity in our transportation system. One of the first things we've done prior to COVID was really start to map out where we're seeing these disproportionately impacted communities and understand how our infrastructure was serving them. So we were kind of in a good place to start to roll out things like slow streets in those communities. We recently finished up our Making Streets for People survey, which was kind of our broad survey of all these initiatives. And overall, we've gotten a fantastic response, like over 90% average across the programs, which is kind of unheard of for anything related to transportation.
For clarity, that's asking Vancouverites if they like something the city has done.
Exactly.
And 90% loved it.
90% of people said it was...
I've never heard that.
I'd never seen that before either, so...
I want to see it remain wide. I want to see on-street car parking removed. I mean, this is such an asset to Vancouver. Having 50 or 60 private cars stored along here is not the best use of public space. I'd like to see two-way traffic returned so that the bus can come back on its eastbound route, because a lot of people that have disabilities or older people rely on having the bus stops close to where they live. In Stanley Park, I'd like to see bikes retain access to the seawall, because it's a beloved scenic flat route that people value very highly. But I think that the time's come for a safe, separated bike lane. Traffic's not like water. Traffic is a psychological decision people make in the morning about what's the most convenient way of getting where I want to go. And if we make cycling safe and convenient and joyful and fun, and you wave to all the people that you see on your way to school every morning, people are going to make that decision more.
Of the 6 or 7 items that were implemented as part of the Making Streets for People, are any of them sticking around through the fall, through next year? And do any of them turn into, are we permanently having patios throughout the city and the slow streets? What do we get to keep?
What do we get to keep? That's a good question. We heard some kind of specific concerns about a couple issues, including transit and access to accessible parking in the park. So we know those are things we'll need to solve through the next iteration, but the goal is to kind of iterate on these and try to improve them. The next phase of slow streets really is starting to roll out traffic calming measures along the slow streets to really physically reduce kind of the speed and volume of vehicles on those streets. We heard a few people just kind of concerned about how they impacted their vehicle access, but we heard overwhelming support for them. Our goal with this is try to get a lot out there. Move fast and break things, they say, I guess, but move fast, recognize that we're going to make some mistakes, and try to quickly and reactively adjust from there. It's unfortunate it took a pandemic to make it happen, but it's giving us an opportunity to try out new things and really try to get things on the ground that are serving the communities of Vancouver.